When I was planning the first video on Scottish teams and their nicknames, my thinking was, oh, here's a nice light-hearted video after the holidays, as I didn't have the time to fully research and write a whole documentary like the ones I previously did. Little did I know that Scottish football fans are absolutely amazing people who have made that video my most watched ever and provided so much info in the comments that I have enough material for a part 2. Therefore, like middle-aged fans of scenic distilleries, we return to Scotland for another run through their leagues, looking at some more nicknames and their stories, corrections from my other video, and some small announcements. Followed by even more nicknames. Have you ever seen another channel spoil its audience this much? Part 1. More nicknames. 1. Airdrieonians. The current Airdrieonians team compete in the Scottish Championship, the second tier of Scottish football, and are actually a phoenix team, built from the ashes of the old team with the same name. The old team, founded all the way back in 1878, went bust in 2002, and their nickname makes this occurrence all the more ironic. Because of their kit design, they are known as the Diamonds, a very opulent nickname for a team that once went bankrupt. 2. Greenock Morton. When I first heard the name Greenock Morton, I thought it was the Scottish version of Graham Norton, but they are in fact a football club that once had the legendary Stanley Matthews on the books, which gives them a ton of street cred. And the ton is in fact how they are nicknamed in a very rare instance where the last part of a club's name is used for the nickname rather than the first few letters or a contraction. Good on you for being different, Greenock. 3. Inverness Caledonian Thistle. Based all the way up in the north of the country, Inverness Caledonian Thistle is quite a mouthful, so naturally, fans of the team needed to come up with a nickname to make their chants a bit snappier. As a lot of Scottish teams use thistles in their name or badge, seeing as this flower is an emblem of Scotland, they needed to differentiate themselves from the others. So naturally, Caledonia was abbreviated to Cayley, which is used in their nicknames of Cayley Thistle and Cayley Jags. And if you're wondering where the Jags come from, they are built in Whitley, Coventry, if you're referring to the cars, and the Jags nickname comes from the fact that thistles have jagged edges. 4. Alloa Athletic. If Alloa fans ever get sick and tired of Scotland's rainy weather, they are only one letter away from a move to Hawaii and some sunshine. Meanwhile, their team competes in Scotland's League One, and because of their black and gold colours, they are nicknamed the Wasps and even sport a very buff wasp on their badge. And if anyone knows why the wasp is so ripped, please let me know. I'm imagining that his wasp girlfriend left him for another wasp back when he was a scrawny weakling, and now he's guzzling down protein shakes made of bees. Speaking of muscles, their other nickname, that of the A-Team, presumably comes from their name, beginning with an A, and means that the players rock up to games in a van and pity any fools that stand in their way. 5. Cove Rangers. Aberdeen's local rivals Cove needed to differentiate themselves from the team they share a city with, and one way was through their nickname. The Toonsers, as they are known, comes from a word in the local dialect that describes a person who isn't connected to the sea-based economy of the area. The Toonsers were the ones who made their money through manufacturing or land-based trade and were based in the richer district of Cove. 6. Falkirk. Falkirk is the place where Edward Longshanks finally defeated William Wallace, and Falkirk FC have also tasted defeat on many occasions, being relegated 7 times between 1945 and 1996. However, every time they bounced back and got promoted again. Their nickname of the Bairns comes from the Bairns of Falkirk, which basically means the sons or the kids of Falkirk, a phrase that is to be found in a number of sayings. Most famous among them is better meddle with a devil than the Bairns of Falkirk. Other suggestions as to the origins of this phrase come in the form of another saying that reads, "You're like the Bairns of Falkirk, you'll end afore you mend." Or a local legend which tells of the Earl of Callendar, James Livingston, who built one of the first water supplies of the town and toasted to the health of the wives and bairns of Falkirk at the unveiling. 7. Hamilton Academical. The academical part of Hamilton denotes the fact that they are the only professional team in Britain to have emerged from a school team. Their nickname of the Ackies is a contraction of academical and does not denote the love for accumulator bets for the fans. 8. Kelty Hearts. Compared to the other teams on the list, Kelty Hearts are still in their infancy, having been founded only 49 years ago. The club resembles Heart of Midlothian both in their naming and their colours, and naturally their nicknames are also similar. The Maroon Machine, called so due to their colours, are also known as the Jambos due to the fact that Hearts rhymes with jam tarts. 9. Montrose. To illustrate just how old the tradition of football is in Scotland, Montrose were founded more than 100 years before our previous entry. Whilst this may be a personal opinion, I feel that Montrose's badge has something distinctly MLS about it, and their first two nicknames of The Mo or the Mighty Mo, a contraction of their name, and especially Lynx Park Dynamo, coming from their stadium called Lynx Park, are distinctly American. Their last nickname, however, isn't, namely the Gable Endies. The last one comes, as far as I can tell, from the merchants of Montrose being allotted small plots to build their shops on, and having to build them gable to gable to save space. And if you're like me and don't know what a gable is, this is a gable. 10. Stirling Albion. Stirling Albion used to play at Anfield for more than 50 years. And I know you're all confused, but this Anfield is spelled with 2 N's and is based in the city of Stirling. But it still sounds like the non-union equivalent of Anfield Road. Albion's nickname is the Binos, which is a contraction of the name Albion. But hear me out on this one. If the team were called Stirling Albino, the Binos would be correct. As they are called Albion, shouldn't its contraction be the Bionos? 11. Berwick Rangers. For the first time we have an English club in the list, and yes, I know the title says Scottish clubs, but I think that how Scottish clubs and one English club that is based right on the border but still in England but plays in the Scottish leagues get their nicknames Part 2 would be a pretty worthy title. Berwick Rangers not only have a great looking badge, but also a ton of nicknames. The black and gold denotes the colours they play in, and the Weegers is a contraction of Rangers and denotes their smaller size. Most famously, they are known as the Borderers, which comes from the position of the club right on the English-Scottish border. Just like the town of Berwick, which switched hands between the English and the Scottish a number of times, Berwick Rangers played both in the English and the Scottish leagues throughout their history, finally settling on playing in Scotland due to the immense costs associated with travelling all the way to the south of England for games. Their last nickname is one I couldn't find any explanation for, namely the Dream Team, and I'm assuming it's either a fanciful thinking on the part of their fans or was made just for a bit of fun. And obviously I will not mention all the names this English club is called by Scottish fans. Part 2. Corrections and announcements. The amazing Scottish fans have shared many stories and tidbits in the previous video, so I will mention some here. The Red Lichties nickname of Arbroath can also be linked to the red light of their harbour, and what I failed to mention is that Licht is how they pronounce light, which is also how the Germans say light, which begs the question, are the residents of Arbroath secret Germans? The Dundee United nickname was further entrenched by a local newspaper which reported on the match where the field was sprinkled with sand, describing the Dundee United team as, quote, taking to the sand like Arabs, unquote. These two nicknames of Dundee United, namely the Terrors and the Arabs, were, let's say, xenophobically put together by a Greek newspaper prior to a match between United and AEK Athens, stating that the club has those two nicknames because Arabs are associated with terrorism. Yikes. One final correction, I had some pretty rude words about the Partick Thistle mascot, but after reading his bio on Partick's site, where he says that even though people say mean things about him, his kindness comes from the inside, I feel like the end of a bell, so sorry Kingsley. As for the rest of the league, mainly concerning clubs like Dundee FC called the Blues due to their colours, Kilmarnock also called Killy, or Ross County called the Staggies due to their badge, I know you all want to see your team featured, but if I included every team in the league, we would be here for days. So if a club doesn't feature, you can assume it has a classic nickname derived from their name or colours or badge. Once again, I want to thank you all for the amazing response to the video, and I hope you will stay with my channel for future projects like analyzing Eastern European countries and their football, or other stories not limited to Scotland. That being said, Scottish football content is coming in the future, as I think it is a very underrated and overlooked league. And as soon as my artist friend clears up their schedule and I figure out how an Etsy store works, I will also have a poster available with all the nicknames featured in the videos. And in order to celebrate this video being my most successful endeavor yet, I would like to do a live stream, ideally playing as a Scottish club in Football Manager, but sadly I am completely rubbish at the game, so the best I can do is to play as Scotland in something like Medieval 2 Total War or Europa Universalis. So if you would like to see that, let me know in the comments. Part 3. Even more nicknames. Linlithgow Rose. Besides having a name that is very hard for me to pronounce, this club has 3 nicknames, namely The Rose, The Rosy Posy, which I find kawaii AF, and The Gallant. I haven't been able to find the definitive information for the last one, but I assume that the chivalric connotations of the Rose gave way to this nickname. Tranent FC. Tranent have just recently started playing in the senior leagues, as until 2018 they played exclusively in the junior competitions, thus being called Tranent Juniors for most of their history. Their nickname of the Belters comes from the same nickname being bestowed on the inhabitants of Tranent. The 2 explanations that I have come across as to the origins of the Belters are either the large amount of tanneries historically present in the town, or the people from Tranent fancying themselves as great fighters and boasting that they could defeat the residents of any of their neighboring villages, as belting also means beating. Banks ODFC. As this club was initially founded as the Rechabites, it is still one of their nicknames today. During the early 20th century, most Western countries had various abstinence movements, with Scotland and England featuring the Independent Order of Rechabites, who took their name from a biblical people also called that way, who were completely abstinent. Of course, it was soon discovered that the team's players indulged in some drinks after the games, so their name was changed to the current one. Before we get to the one you're all waiting for, I will rattle off a few interesting honorable mentions. Brora Rangers are called the Catachs after a local Pictish tribe who had a similar name. Fraserburg FC are called the Broch, which is the nickname of the local harbour and fishing port. And Third Lanark AC, a now defunct club, used to be called the High High after their crowd started screaming "High, High, High" after a defender kicked a ball so high it exited the stadium. And if any of you can tell me in the comments why Stenhousemuir are called the Warriors and Wake Academy are nicknamed the Scories, I would be very grateful. As I have saved the best for last, we now come to Cowdenbeath, a small town that gained fame after Queen Victoria stopped there to change horses on her way to Balmoral, and a town which has a history of mining and is pretty cold during most of the year. The club based in this town has never won any major trophies and spent most of its life in the lower tiers, so naturally they could just be boring and stick to their nickname of the Miners. But their fans had other plans. A very tongue-in-cheek nickname bestowed upon the team is that of the Blue Brazil. The blue denotes the color of their kit, and apparently after completing a series of passes, one fan shouted, "Look at us, we're like the Blue Brazil," and the name stuck. And you bet I will be yelling that at my local team at their next game. As always, thank you so much to those of you who have watched until the end. And once again, I am sorry for any names that I have butchered, and I hope to see you next time.